The galactic fleet claimed the final battle. Then the humans showed up. Admiral Zephyr's 6 arms moved gracefully across the command console as he watched the battle displays. The massive Thranx Dominion fleet was finally retreating after 3 brutal days of fighting. Their dark ships limped away from the Kepler nexus, trailing plasma and debris. Victory belonged to the Galactic Federation at last. "Status report," Zephyr commanded, his blue-scaled head turning toward his tactical officer. Lieutenant Vex, a small insectoid being with compound eyes, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Sir, enemy casualties are at 78%. Our losses stand at 42%. The Thranx are pulling back to the outer rim." Zephyr nodded with satisfaction. The war had lasted 15 years. Consuming entire star systems and billions of lives, the Thranx Dominion had swept across the galaxy like a plague, enslaving worlds and harvesting resources with ruthless efficiency. Their biomechanical ships could adapt mid-battle, making them nearly impossible to defeat. But today changed everything. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Zephyr ordered. "This is Admiral Zephyr of the Galactic Federation. The Thranx Dominion has been defeated at Kepler Nexus. The war is over. Victory belongs to the free peoples of the galaxy." Cheers erupted across the bridge. Captain Morok, a massive bear-like Urson, roared with joy. The Centaurian navigator's tentacles danced in celebration. Even the normally stoic crystalline engineer's body glowed brighter with excitement. Across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. On Altair Prime, crowds poured into the streets. The mining colonies of Vega sang their ancient victory songs. Children on peaceful worlds would finally know peace. But Admiral Zephyr didn't know about the small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. A world called Earth, where a species called humanity had been watching the war through crude radio telescopes and primitive sensors. The humans had been trying to contact the galaxy for decades, sending signals into space and hoping for an answer. Their technology was laughably primitive by galactic standards. They still used chemical rockets and couldn't even travel to their neighboring planets properly. When the war reached their sector, the major powers simply ignored Earth. What could a species that hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel possibly contribute to a galactic conflict? The Federation briefly considered evacuation protocols, but Earth was so far from the main battlefields that it seemed unnecessary. The Thranx Dominion had different ideas. 3 months after Zephyr's victory, long-range sensors detected something impossible. Thranx ships were massing near Earth's solar system. Not retreating ships looking for a place to hide, but a full invasion fleet. Fresh ships with new biotechnology that scanners had never seen before. "This makes no sense," Vex reported to Admiral Zephyr aboard the Federation flagship Harmony. "Intelligence says the Thranx lost 80% of their fleet. Where did these ships come from?" Zephyr studied the tactical display with growing concern. The Thranx fleet wasn't just large, it was massive, easily twice the size of their previous armadas. Worse, the ships showed technological advances that shouldn't be possible. Their biohulls pulsed with new energy signatures and weapon systems that defied known physics. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the Thranx fleet." The main screen flickered to life, showing the horrifying visage of Overlord Skarn, Supreme Commander of the Thranx Dominion. His chitinous face was scarred from countless battles, and his 4 red eyes burned with malevolent intelligence. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship writhed with living technology. "Admiral Zephyr," Skarn's voice was like grinding metal. "Your victory was premature. We have discovered something wonderful on this primitive world. A species with such potential for violence and adaptation that we must study them immediately." Zephyr's blood ran cold. "The humans are under Federation protection. Any attack on Earth will be met with the full force of our remaining fleet." Skarn's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Your fleet. You have perhaps 300 ships left in fighting condition. We bring over 800 fresh vessels, powered by technology your primitive minds cannot comprehend. The transmission cut to external views of the Thranx fleet. Zephyr watched in horror as massive bioships pulsed with dark energy. They were larger than anything the Thranx had fielded during the war, with weapon ports that seemed to breathe and hulls that rippled like living skin. Where did they get this technology? Captain Morok demanded. Unknown, Vex replied, his compound eyes reflecting fear. But sir, there's something else. We're detecting strange energy signatures from Earth itself. Something is happening on that planet. Zephyr made the hardest decision of his military career. Signal the fleet, all available ships to Earth immediately, maximum speed. The journey would take 6 days at full warp. The Federation's battered fleet limped through space, crews working around the clock to repair battle damage. Engineers pushed damaged engines beyond safe limits. Medical bays overflowed with wounded from the Kepler Nexus battle. Meanwhile, intelligence reports painted an increasingly grim picture. The Thranx weren't just planning to invade Earth. They were treating it like some kind of experiment. Deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy collectors being deployed around human population centers. They're not planning to conquer, the intelligence chief reported grimly. They're planning to harvest. On the 3rd day of travel, everything changed again. Earth's primitive communication networks suddenly went dark. Every radio signal, every electronic transmission simply stopped. The planet that had been chattering constantly with electromagnetic noise fell completely silent. Did the Thranx attack early? Zephyr demanded. No, sir, Vex replied, confusion clear in his voice. The Thranx fleet is still 3 days out from Earth, but something is definitely happening on the planet. The sensor readings made no sense. Energy spikes beyond anything a pre-warp civilization should be capable of producing. Massive construction projects appearing overnight in major population centers. Most disturbing of all, space-based platforms were being built and launched at impossible speeds. Sir, the communications officer called out urgently, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from Earth. Zephyr straightened in his command chair. On screen. The face that appeared was unlike anything in the Federation databases. Pale skin, small eyes, and hair the color of aged metal. But it was the expression that caught Zephyr's attention. Calm, calculating, and absolutely fearless. This is General Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, the human said in a steady voice. Admiral Zephyr, we've been monitoring your communications with the Thranx. We appreciate your concern for our world, but intervention will not be necessary. Zephyr blinked all 4 of his eyes in confusion. General Chen, you don't understand the situation. The Thranx Dominion brings nearly 1,000 warships equipped with technology that defeated our best fleets. Your world has no space-based defenses. Chen smiled, and something about that expression sent chills down Zephyr's spine. Admiral, you're correct that we had no space-based defenses, past tense. The transmission shifted to external views of Earth's orbital space. Zephyr gasped in shock. Massive defense platforms surrounded the planet like a metal web. Sleek warships patrolled in perfect formations. Most impossible of all, the ships were clearly human in design, but incorporated technology that looked decades ahead of anything they should possess. How is this possible? Zephyr whispered. We've been busy, Chen replied simply. The moment we detected the Thranx approach, every nation on Earth put aside their differences. We combined our knowledge, our resources, and our manufacturing capabilities in ways we'd never attempted before. Captain Morok leaned forward. But this level of technology would require years of development. You've had days. Chen's smile grew wider. Captain, you clearly don't understand humans very well. When we're threatened, we don't just adapt. We innovate at speeds that surprise even ourselves. The transmission ended, leaving Zephyr's bridge in stunned silence. Through the viewport, Earth grew larger as their fleet approached. The planet that had been a small blue dot of primitive civilization now bristled with weapons and defenses that boggled the mind. But the real shock came when they finally reached Earth's solar system. The Thranks invasion fleet had already arrived and taken position near the outer planets. Their bioships pulsed with dark energy as they prepared for what should have been an easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing something no Thranks commander had ever encountered before. Humanity wasn't cowering or begging for mercy. They were waiting with weapons charged and formations that spoke of military planning beyond anything their primitive status should have allowed. Admiral Zephyr realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare was about to change forever. Overlord Skarn studied the tactical displays aboard his flagship with growing confusion. The primitive world that should have been defenseless now showed energy readings that made no sense. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the planet, while sleek warships moved in formations that spoke of advanced military doctrine. "Status report," Skarn commanded, his 4 red eyes focusing on his tactical coordinator. Sub-Commander Vex, a younger Thranks with fresh bio-implants, clicked nervously. "Sir, we detect approximately 400 human vessels of unknown design. Energy signatures are off the scale. These readings suggest technology more advanced than our own." Skarn's mandibles ground together in anger. "Impossible! Our intelligence showed this species hasn't even achieved interstellar travel. They use primitive chemical propulsion and crude nuclear weapons." "The data is confirmed, Overlord," Vex insisted. "Moreover, we're detecting energy shields around their major population centers, planetary defense grids, manufacturing facilities producing vessels at impossible speeds." Through the bio-neural link that connected him to his fleet, Skarn felt the uncertainty spreading among his commanders. The Thranks' dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. They had never encountered a species that could advance from primitive to advanced in mere days. "Open communication channels," Skarn ordered. "I will speak to these humans myself." The main display shimmered, showing the bridge of what appeared to be the human command vessel. The being that appeared was small by Thranks standards, with pale skin and dark hair, but the eyes held an intelligence that Skarn recognized immediately. This was a predator. "I am Admiral Lisa Rodriguez of the Sol Defense Fleet," the human said calmly. "Overlord Skarn, your reputation precedes you. 15 years of galactic conquest, billions dead, entire civilizations enslaved." Skarn leaned forward, his massive frame casting shadows across his bridge. "Admiral Rodriguez, you speak boldly for a member of a species that was using stone tools mere millennia ago. Surrender now, and your people will be granted quick deaths." Rodriguez laughed, and the sound sent chills through the Thranks' bio-neural network. "Overlord, you've made the same mistake that every other species makes when they first encounter humanity. You assume that technological advancement follows a predictable timeline." "What do you mean?" Skarn demanded. "Let me show you," Rodriguez replied. The transmission shifted to views of Earth's surface. Massive factories stretched across entire continents. Assembly lines moved at impossible speeds, producing starships and weapons at rates that defied logic. In major cities, construction projects that should have taken years were completing in hours. "This is impossible," Skarn muttered. Rodriguez reappeared on screen. "Overlord, what you're seeing is what happens when you threaten the human species. We don't just fight back. We transform ourselves into something designed specifically to destroy you." The transmission cut to historical footage that made Skarn's bio-enhanced nervous system spike with alarm. Humans during their primitive world wars, developing weapons of mass destruction in months rather than years, industrial capabilities ramping up at speeds that seemed to violate natural laws, a species that could go from bows and arrows to nuclear weapons in centuries rather than millennia. During our Second World War, Rodriguez explained, we went from producing a few dozen aircraft per month to manufacturing over 8,000 per month within 2 years. When threatened, human industrial capacity doesn't just increase, it explodes. Scarn watched the footage with growing unease. These humans had the most aggressive technological advancement curve he'd ever encountered. But what truly disturbed him was the footage of human soldiers. They fought with a ferocity that reminded him of the Thranks themselves, but with tactical innovations that his own species had never considered. You interest me, Admiral, Scarn said finally, but you face 800 vessels equipped with biotechnology that adapts in real time. Your 400 ships cannot possibly match our firepower. Rodriguez smiled again, and this time Scarn felt actual fear through his bio-neural implants. Overlord, you're still thinking in conventional terms. You assume we built 400 ships to fight 800 of yours. That's not how humans approach impossible odds. Then how do you approach them? Scarn asked, despite himself. We cheat, Rodriguez replied simply. Before Scarn could respond, his tactical coordinator began screaming warnings. Sir! Energy spikes detected throughout the human fleet. Unknown weapon signatures, sir. They're not charging conventional weapons. On the tactical display, Scarn watched as the human vessels began to glow with energy patterns that made no sense. Instead of the plasma cannons or particle beams that most species used, these ships were generating fields that seemed to bend space itself. What are those weapons? Scarn demanded. Rodriguez's image flickered back onto the screen. Overlord, meet humanity's greatest achievement. We studied your bioships through every sensor we could build. We analyzed your adaptive capabilities, your regenerative hulls, your distributed intelligence networks. Then we designed weapons specifically to counter every advantage you possess. The first human ships opened fire, and Scarn watched in horror as beams of twisted energy struck his bio-vessels. Instead of burning through armor or overwhelming shields, the weapons seemed to attack the living tissue of the ships themselves. Biohulls that had regenerated from every previous weapon now writhed in agony as their cellular structure was systematically dismantled. Genetic dissolution beams, Rodriguez explained calmly. Your ships are living organisms. We built weapons that target the specific genetic markers in your biotechnology. Your greatest strength is now your greatest weakness. Scarn's own flagship shuddered as human weapons found their mark. Through the bio-neural link, he felt the pain of his ship as its living hull began to break down at the molecular level. The regenerative systems that had made Thrank's vessels nearly invincible were turning against themselves. Impossible, Scarn gasped. Genetic targeting requires decades of research. You've had days. Overlord, Rodriguez replied. You keep underestimating human capabilities. When our survival is at stake, we don't think in terms of normal research timelines. We had every scientist, every computer, every research facility on our planet working on this problem simultaneously. The battle display showed the horrible truth of human efficiency. Scarn's mighty fleet, which had swept across the galaxy unopposed, was being systematically dismantled by weapons that attacked the very foundation of Thrank's technology. Ships that had survived battles against entire Federation fleets were dissolving like tissue in acid, but the true horror came when Scarn realized the scope of human planning. Every weapon, every defensive position, every tactical formation had been designed with intimate knowledge of Thrank's capabilities. The humans hadn't just built a fleet in days. They had built the perfect counter to everything the Thrank's dominion represented. How did you know? Scarn demanded as his ships continued to fall around him. How did you learn so much about our technology so quickly? Rodriguez's expression became deadly serious. Because we've been watching, Overlord. For 15 years, we've monitored every battle, every engagement, every tactical innovation. Your war with the Federation was our graduate education in galactic warfare. Through his failing bio-neural network, Skarn felt the death screams of his fleet commanders. Ships that had conquered worlds were being reduced to floating debris. The adaptive bioarmor that was the pinnacle of Thrank's evolution was useless against weapons designed by a species that had spent years studying its weaknesses. "You used us," Skarn realized with growing horror. "The entire war was your learning experience." "Not exactly," Rodriguez corrected. "We genuinely hoped the Federation would win. But we're not a species that relies on hope. While other worlds prayed for victory, we prepared for the possibility that you might come for us next." Skarn's flagship lurched as another human weapon tore through its bio-hull. Emergency systems that had never failed began shutting down one by one. Through the viewport, he could see human ships moving with surgical precision, targeting specific systems on each Thrank's vessel with weapons tailored to that exact purpose. "You're monsters," Skarn whispered. Rodriguez's image became ice-cold. "No, Overlord, we're humans, and you just made the mistake of threatening our home." The transmission ended as Skarn's flagship began its final death spiral. Around him, the greatest fleet in Thrank's history was being methodically destroyed by a species that had been considered too primitive to matter. Admiral Zephyr watched the battle from his Federation command ship with a mixture of awe and terror. In his wildest dreams, he had never imagined such a complete reversal of fortune. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating a level of tactical sophistication that made every other species in the galaxy look like children playing with toys. "Sir," Lieutenant Vex reported in a shaking voice, "human ships are broadcasting a message for us." Admiral Rodriguez appeared on their screen, her expression now calm and professional. "Admiral Zephyr, thank you for coming to assist us. As you can see, the situation is well in hand." Zephyr found his voice with difficulty. "Admiral Rodriguez, how did you accomplish all this? The technology, the tactics, the sheer scale of your response?" Rodriguez smiled, but this time it was warm rather than terrifying. "Admiral, you're about to learn something very important about humanity. We are the most adaptable, innovative, and ruthlessly efficient species in the galaxy. We just needed the right motivation to prove it." The cleanup operation lasted 3 days. Human salvage ships moved through the wreckage of the Thrank's fleet with methodical efficiency, collecting technology samples and ensuring no bioship survived to regenerate. Admiral Zephyr watched from his command deck as these primitive humans demonstrated organizational capabilities that put the Federation's best logistics corps to shame. "Admiral Rodriguez," Zephyr transmitted to the human command vessel, "my government will want a full report on this engagement. The implications for galactic security are staggering." Rodriguez's image appeared on his screen, looking remarkably fresh for someone who had just orchestrated the complete destruction of history's most dangerous invasion force. "Of course, Admiral. But first, I think it's time you met some people." The transmission shifted to show the interior of a massive facility that definitely hadn't existed a week ago. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel from dozens of different human nations worked together in perfect coordination. The technology around them was clearly beyond anything Earth should have possessed, but what struck Zephyr most was the atmosphere of calm professionalism. "This is Dr. James Patterson, our chief xenotechnology specialist," Rodriguez said, introducing a gray-haired human with tired but alert eyes. "Dr. Patterson, please explain to Admiral Zephyr how we developed our countermeasures so quickly." Patterson stepped forward, adjusting primitive optical devices over his eyes. "Admiral, the key was international cooperation, on a scale our species had never attempted before. When we detected the Thrank's approach, every government on Earth immediately shared all classified research." "But the technology gap," Zephyr protested. "Your species was using chemical rockets just months ago." Patterson smiled. That's not entirely accurate, Admiral. We've had theoretical frameworks for advanced propulsion, energy weapons, and genetic targeting systems for decades. What we lacked was the manufacturing infrastructure and political will to implement them. A younger human woman stepped forward. I'm Dr. Sarah Kim, director of the Seoul Rapid Manufacturing Initiative. Admiral, when our survival was threatened, we didn't just build new factories, we revolutionized the entire concept of manufacturing. The display showed footage of human industrial facilities working at impossible speeds. Assembly lines that seemed to flow like rivers, carrying components that assembled themselves into complex systems. Robotic workers that moved with fluid precision, coordinated by artificial intelligences that had clearly surpassed anything in current galactic technology. We call it threat response manufacturing, Dr. Kim explained. When facing extinction, human industrial capacity becomes exponential rather than linear. We built the infrastructure to build the infrastructure to build the weapons. Zephyr studied the footage with growing amazement. This level of coordination would require communication systems that we invented last Tuesday, another human interrupted. This one was younger, with the intense expression of someone who hadn't slept in days. I'm Dr. Marcus Webb, Quantum Communications Division. We developed instantaneous information transfer networks that linked every research facility on the planet. Admiral Zephyr felt his understanding of technological development crumbling, but the research required for quantum communications alone should take decades. Dr. Webb grinned. Admiral, you keep thinking about normal research timelines. When humanity faces extinction, we don't follow normal timelines. We had 10,000 brilliant minds working on the same problems simultaneously, sharing every breakthrough instantly. The transmission cut to footage of human cities during the crisis. Instead of panic or chaos, Zephyr saw populations working with mechanical precision, factories retooling overnight, universities becoming weapons research facilities, children helping with component assembly while maintaining perfect safety protocols. You militarized your entire civilization, Zephyr realized with awe. Rodriguez nodded. More than that, Admiral. We evolved our entire civilization in 1 week. Every human on Earth became part of a single organism dedicated to one purpose, making the Thranks regret threatening our home. The display showed the final stages of the battle from human perspectives. Weapon systems that had been theoretical concepts a week ago performing with surgical precision. Tactical formations that incorporated centuries of human military doctrine refined by quantum computer analysis of every Thranks engagement in recorded history. The Thranks made one critical error, Rodriguez continued. They assumed that technological advancement follows predictable patterns. They studied our radio transmissions and concluded we were primitive, but they never studied our history. Dr. Patterson stepped forward again. Admiral, human history is the story of impossible adaptations. We went from the first powered flight to landing on our moon in 66 years, from the first computer to global information networks in 50 years. When threatened with extinction, these timelines compress even further. Zephyr looked at the data streaming across his displays. Human ships were already being upgraded with salvaged Thranks technology, but improved in ways that suggested understanding beyond what any Federation scientist had achieved. You're going to reverse engineer their bioships, Zephyr stated. We already have, a new voice said. A tall human woman with mechanical augmentations approached the screen. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, director of the Biotechnology Integration Project. We've not only reverse-engineered Thranks bioships, we've improved them. The display showed human technicians working on captured Thranks vessels. But instead of simply copying the technology, they were modifying it with innovations that made Zephyr's mind real. Bioships with redundant systems that could adapt faster than the originals. Genetic programming that allowed human control while maintaining the regenerative advantages. This is impossible, Zephyr whispered. The Thranks spent millennia developing that technology. Dr. Vasquez smiled. They spent millennia developing it slowly, Admiral. We analyzed it with the focused intensity of an entire planetary civilization facing extinction. Different approach, different results. Admiral Rodriguez returned to the center of the transmission. Admiral Zephyr, I think it's time we discussed humanity's future relationship with the Galactic Federation. Zephyr straightened in his chair, suddenly aware that this conversation had become far more important than a simple battle report. What do you mean, Admiral? The Federation has been fighting the Thranks for 15 years with limited success, Rodriguez stated calmly. In 1 week, humanity developed technology that completely neutralized their greatest advantages. I think we can be useful to each other. The implications hit Zephyr like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't asking to join the Federation as a junior member seeking protection. They were offering partnership between equals. What are you proposing? Zephyr asked carefully. Rodriguez's expression became businesslike. Full technological exchange, Federation scientific knowledge combined with human innovation and manufacturing capabilities, joint defense initiatives, shared research programs. And in return, Zephyr prompted. In return, Rodriguez said, humanity ensures that no species in the galaxy ever faces the threat of extinction again. We become the Federation's rapid response force for impossible situations. Zephyr considered the offer while watching human ships patrol the system with casual competence. A species that had gone from primitive to advanced in 1 week. Manufacturing capabilities that defied known physics. Innovation cycles that compressed decades of normal development into days of intense focus. There's something else, Rodriguez added. Our analysis of Thrank's communications suggests this wasn't their main fleet. It was an advance force sent to test something they found on Earth. Zephyr's blood chilled. You mean there are more? Probably, Rodriguez confirmed. But Admiral, they made a critical error. They gave us a laboratory to study their technology. They showed us their tactical capabilities. Most importantly, they proved to 8 billion humans that our species faces genuine threats from hostile alien civilizations. The display showed new construction beginning in Earth's orbital space, not just weapons platforms, but massive industrial complexes that seemed to grow as Zephyr watched. Human engineering capabilities were not slowing down after the crisis. If anything, they were accelerating. What exactly are you building? Zephyr asked. Rodriguez smiled with an expression that mixed warmth and absolute determination. Everything, Admiral. We're building everything we need to make sure that never again will any species threaten the extinction of another. The Federation fought a defensive war for 15 years. Humanity doesn't do defensive wars. What do you mean? We mean, Dr. Patterson interjected, that while the Federation was trying to survive Thrank's aggression, we've been developing the technology to take the war to their homeworld, to their production facilities, to their high command. Zephyr stared at the humans with growing amazement. You're planning to invade the Thrank's dominion. We're planning to end the Thrank's dominion, Rodriguez corrected, permanently. And we're offering the Federation the opportunity to participate in that ending. Through his viewport, Zephyr could see human ships already modified with captured Thrank's technology. But more than that, he could see construction projects that suggested capabilities far beyond anything currently known. These humans weren't just adapting to galactic warfare, they were preparing to redefine it entirely. Admiral Rodriguez, Zephyr said slowly, I believe my government will be very interested in your proposals. Rodriguez nodded. Excellent. And Admiral, tell your government that humanity appreciates their attempt to defend our world. We don't forget our friends any more than we forget our enemies. The transmission ended, leaving Zephyr staring at a view of Earth that showed a transformed world. Orbital platforms that bristled with weapons designed by minds that saw impossible problems as interesting challenges. Ships that incorporated technology developed by a species that had proven adaptability was more valuable than any other trait in the galaxy. Admiral Zephyr began composing his report to Federation Command, knowing that everything in the galaxy was about to change. The humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same.